Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Collier. I'm your host with Conquer with Chris, the podcast you don't want to miss. I have a guest today. Her name is Cheryl Stelt. Cheryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, Cheryl, let's get to know you a little bit. What do you do and how do you do it?
I'm a spiritual coach and master healer, and I'm also a 3-time author. I've written 3 books, never really planned on doing any of those things. So I am just thrilled to be living my life that at one point was totally unimaginable.
I'm laughing because I was just going through, you know how you go through your life and take inventory from time to time? And I never thought I'd be a podcast personality, right? Or a media personality. So that being said, is how did you get to being a 3-time author and a healer? How do you get to do that kind of thing? How do you start out?
I began my own journey over 30 years ago, was never on a spiritual path. I was raised Catholic, went to church as a kid, stopped, in my 20s. I would go occasionally, but I wasn't going every Sunday. So I did believe in God. That's the point of that. And what happened, I was on Vancouver Island on a beach waiting for the tide to go out so my friend and I could pick oysters. And she was practicing kinesiology on me while we're waiting. And she was doing all this weird stuff, muscle testing with her fingers and asking these questions. Is it this? Is it that person? And all of a sudden, as I'm laying there with my eyes closed, this huge ball of white light filled with the most intense love I've ever felt was hovering above me. And I knew it was my deceased brother's spirit. And he had taken his life about a year before. And suddenly she said, "It's your brother. He's here." And I said, "I know." And the long and the short of it was she ended up channeling for the first time in her life. And his message for me was to start meditating. And that's what got me going, Chris. So it's a, rather unusual story, but that's how it started. And it didn't take long until I started becoming my own energy worker and started healing my past. We all have stuff from our early childhood. Humanity continues to evolve. And that's what started it all.
And let's continue here a little bit and find out how you channel that into what you do now in your writings.
So I continued for, decades. I continued to meditate and started doing all sorts of trainings. I studied many, many modalities, spent thousands upon thousands of dollars because I just kept growing in that. And then people would ask me if I could teach them how to meditate or if I could help them with this or that. So naturally, I would say yes. And in the beginning, I didn't charge anything. I did it because I love to do it. And then eventually I started charging, and I had started my own spiritual interior design business in my 30s. And I did a lot of work for my clients through that business, a lot of healing, a lot of empowerment through the work that I did, and eventually accepted the fact. And it was the hardest thing for me to accept was my soul's calling to be a spiritual teacher, a spiritual leader, however you want to phrase it. It was the biggest challenge of my life. And because most of us, if not all of us, are really, truly afraid of our greatness, of who we truly are and who we're meant to be.
Wow. Let's just stop right there and unpack that for a minute. That's an awesome quote. We're all a little bit scared of our true greatness. I think that's so true. Like, because we've always been taught, even from a young age, like when you go to, well, I don't know how much they do them now, but when I was a kid, we'd have a family dinner and all the aunts and uncles and all of us would get together and there was a kids table. You're taught to play small. You got to go sit at the kids table. You're taught to, the old days, the kids should be seen and not heard. All this kind of stuff. They teach you to play small. So how do you help someone just from a mindset standpoint, not even spiritually, maybe, how do you help someone overcome that? I call it stronghold, mental stronghold, right? How do you get them to, which is really you arguing yourself, right? I really deserve this. And you go, no, no, I really don't. How do you help cut through that argument that's in the head? What do you teach people to do?
So very interesting that you call it a stronghold. I haven't heard that, and I really appreciate that. I'm resonating with the stronghold. And so, as you refer to the argument going on in your head or the conversation going on in your head, if you think of it as that is the very tip of the iceberg, there is so much more going on underneath that at the subconscious level, deep in the subconscious. And so, what I do is I help people locate that, discover it in their subconscious, all the old conditioning, and release it, and then reprogram the subconscious with much more empowering beliefs. So
Wow.
that's basically it in a nutshell. But the conversations and what I see so often is, people that come to work with me, they're like, I know I have blocks, but I don't know what they are. They're aware of those conversations, but they know there's much bigger blocks. It's sort of like you could ask yourself the question, you do something or you say something to somebody and you go, why did I do that? What was I thinking? Right? And
It,
it's because of our earlier programming, stronghold.
well, it's not just that, but like you get in a car, if you take away the mirrors, you're in a lot of trouble. And a lot of us don't have those mirrors in our life, right? Like just like a car has the rear view mirror and the one side mirror on each side, it helps you see those spots that you wouldn't see. We don't have friends or relatives, or we haven't given people the opportunity or responsibility, or we've had people let us down in the past, so we can't see those blind spots, right? And so when we don't see those blind spots and we don't deal with them, it causes problems. We get in accidents, right? I'm thinking of a time I dated this young lady, and when I was younger, before I got married, and I became emotionally a quadriplegic because I dove in water, the relationship that was much shallower than I thought it was going to be. I didn't test it out because they tell you check the water before you jump in or dive in. I didn't check the water in this relationship or the potential of the relationship before I dove in, and it hurt. And it took me a while to get over it. And I think a lot of times we all go through things, and especially relationships, it's funny. We all just jump in. We say we fell into love. Well, if you fell in, you can fall out. But the other part of it is when you jump in, you've got to check and test the water. And a lot of us don't do that, right? In business, we got to test the water and see if it's going to be a good fit for us. Because just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for me. It may, but the way I do it will be different than the way you do it. And that's the good thing about being individuals. We all can do our own thing, our own way. Even if it's the same, similar thing to someone else, we create our own version of that, so to speak. There's no, in certain senses, there's no certain way to do a certain thing unless there's principled things. Yeah, that's the way to do something. But outside of principles, you got a lot of leeway to live.
Right.
So, do you help people? Let me ask this. Like I was talking about relationships, is what is the major underlying thing that you think people have dealt with, right? Um, in my experience, I run into a lot of people who've been damaged, and usually it's rejection. Rejection is the number one thing that people deal with.
That people do to themselves or to each other.
That people go through, like just from childhood to adulthood, people deal with. There's
Oh,
two things that I found is rejection and fatherhood issues. Like those are the two main, and sometimes they're combined, right? Fatherhood,
right,
rejection.
right.
So those are the two main pillars I would say that I found in dealing with people.
I find the number one thing is not ever learning how to believe in themselves because it wasn't expressed. I think of it this way. I like your car analogy that we need all those mirrors. And if we don't have those mirrors, we're in trouble. But, and it's wonderful if those mirrors are clear. So if you think of if the mirrors are broken, and so our parents or caregivers had their own problems, so they weren't clear beings to reflect back to us our amazingness. And so if you think of all those mirrors, if they're broken or skewed or they're warped, so we use the mirror, but we can't see clearly. And so each mirror is giving us distorted information. So that's where we come to in our lives. We're still driving the car with this distorted view. So we might not be going the right way, and we're on the verge of an accident at any time. And so you also spoke about your relationship, the woman you dated before your wife, and you should have tested the waters longer because you discovered that it was emotionally shallow, which is not what you wanted. And so I think of it this way, is developing our own emotional awareness. So we may want an emotionally intimate relationship. If we're not emotionally aware with those around us, it's because we have those distorted mirrors that are still guiding us. So with the work I do, if you think of it this way, I help you clear those mirrors and put very clear mirrors so you know where you're going, what you're doing. And there's no question, there's no self-doubt. There's no self-doubt. And then it's about believing, to me, it's about believing in yourself. We may not have others who have really believed in us. They think they have, but it's often, especially with parents, they know better. They know more. How many times have you gone through something in your life? And this is for all the listeners at home as well. You go through a period with your life and something's going on. There's a situation and you're in the place of uncertainty. How many people support you in being in that uncertainty and demonstrating to you they have all the trust and faith in you that you're going to make the right decision for yourself? No, that's not what they do. Good friends will give you good advice. Everybody gives you all their distorted mirrors. Here, turn this way, go that way. And so we are so seriously conditioned, consciously, subconsciously, energetically. It's just happening all the time. And so it's really gaining the clarity within yourself so that you don't have the self-doubt. And when you're in doubt, that it's okay. And that belief in yourself that you're going to work through it and make the right choices.
That's amazing. So when you started out, you said you weren't charging, and then you did start to charge. Let's describe that process. Like, a lot of us do stuff for free. We start off because it's a hobby, it's a potential business, it's something we like to do. But at some point, you make the notification mentally, or maybe just out of necessity. I need to get paid for this because it's taking too much of my time or energy, whatever the case may be. How do you start to flip that switch?
I really flipped the switch. I hadn't charged until I was in business in my spiritual interior design business. So that part of the work I charged separately from whatever contract we were under for work that I was doing in their home. And I was also a renovation contractor. So I started charging there. And I remember charging well. I remember charging well for that work. And it was because somebody helped me see the value in it. Somebody helped me see, look, you are really changing lives here. And people wouldn't bat an eye at paying it. There was some of the work that I did, a little bit of healing work that was included in whatever we were doing in the home. It varied. And so that really gave me a springboard as to what I could go into. But it was interesting. I looked at, when it came to just the meditation classes that I was teaching, so I looked at what's the going rate, and I charged what everybody else charged. And so sure, I had a lot of students and that sort of thing, but I would never be able to make a living at it full time. So then when I started doing this work and I looked at what healers were charging, and then I started to realize I've been at this for a very long time. And it's not the power of me that helps them. I can say I'm a master healer, and I could say I'm a very powerful healer, but it's not my power. It's the power of the universe, of God, source, the creator moving through me. And that is a skill that one doesn't develop overnight. It takes years of practice to do it to the level that I do it. So then I also saw that when I raised my rates, people got more out of it. And they also expected more. They had higher expectations, which was great. And then that helped me grow. So after I taught people.
Oh, hold on. So you said something. I gotta say this because the people listening are gonna be like, oh my goodness. You said you charged more. You started to charge more. They got more out of it. They expected more, and it caused you to grow.
Yes.
So, what people, if you have a product, service, or something you're not charging enough for, you feel like, oh, my prices. I'm the Dollar Tree of what I do. Don't be the Dollar Tree. Don't be the Walmart. Don't be the Amazon. Be the Belk, the Hudson's, the designer H&M. Be the one of the designers brands of what you do. Don't just do it and say, hey, I'm just doing this because I'm doing it. Become the best at what you do. She started becoming an expert, so she put her prices up to the expert level, and people wanted more. They expected more, and she grew more. I'm sorry, go back to what you were saying.
Thank you. And yes, once you move to a new level of either teaching or sharing with others, or like you talk so much about on your podcast, is legacy. When you make that decision to leave a legacy, you are going to grow. And I'll just speak to that for a moment, if I may. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, stepping on your toes. Legacy was, I never could really understand. I thought, oh, that's not for me. I'll never leave a legacy. I played small. I'm telling you, I had so much to overcome, Chris. But there comes a point when you serve enough people, and I've served a lot of people, and I'm getting a little emotional thinking about this. Who are you not to leave a legacy? There's another whole generation coming, and another one and another one. So my legacy is to help as many individuals as I can in deep ways that it can be passed on. And so a lot of my clients now are starting to do their own thing, and I support them. Everything I do, you don't sign a clause with me that you can't use anything that I say or do or that. I did that once with a coach. I had to sign this long document, and she ended up using more of my stuff. And I was like, whoa. And I'm like, do it. As the Canadians would say, fill your boots. Take as much of it as you want and use it to help humanity. We're all in this together. We are all evolving. And so it's leaving that. And so charging is, and I don't overcharge. I don't believe in overcharging. What I charge is bang on, and you get more than your money's worth.
It's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people say, why, because you got people who are tire kickers and bargain basement hunters, and they're okay. That's okay. When you deal with would you go to a heart specialist and say, that's just too expensive? Could you have someone that has the Dollar Tree price for a heart specialist, or the discount bargain bin, or if you remember Kmart, do you have a blue light special heart doctor? Or if you need a knee replacement, right? You're not looking for the person that does the cheapest job or can give you the discount. I mean, granted, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money, and you're looking for a discount, and that's fine. But just to be trying to put people down so you can get a better deal, I think sometimes, like, if you have that kind of mindset, a lot of times I think you've got to overcome so much just to get out of that mindset. Because could you imagine asking a contractor, oh yeah, I need the cheapest bricks you can find, the cheapest wood. I don't care if it's warped. Your house is going to fall apart in weeks. All that being said is I like that thought process, because we as humans are called to be productively productive, creatively creating at all times. Always, like, one of the things it's sometimes I feel it's kind of like an edge of a knife, right? There are times that I feel a little bit down about it, but there's also the upside. And when you have the right attitude, is when you get an attitude of a child, and you have that Christmas like attitude when they go out to the gifts. Look at all these gifts. But could you imagine a kid going, oh my gosh, there's too many gifts. I don't know which one I'm supposed to open first. It's just too much. But a lot of times we're like that in life. There's so much for us to do, and it becomes overwhelming. There's always something greater to push towards. So help the people who might be listening, who might have that not childlike attitude, who be like, oh my gosh, it's just so much. Help them get that right mindset. Just give them something small here to help them get that right mindset to go into every day like it's Christmas.
Wow. And well, I think it's a very common thing. A common suggestion is to move into gratitude, because when we move into gratitude, it amplifies. Whatever we do will amplify. Where intention goes, energy flows, or where focus goes, energy flows. And so feeling grateful will call in more good stuff. And to see the beauty in your life, whether that's the trees that are around you, the wonderful people or situations, raise your vibration. And so there can be more and more of it. And if I can add more to that, the biggest thing that gets in our way is when we don't allow ourselves to feel those negative feelings or uncomfortable feelings like fear, anger, confusion, shame, those lower vibration, and those will trip us up all the time. And what happens is when we're feeling difficult emotions and we push them aside because we've been conditioned to push them aside, we will automatically reach to feel better, but we will reach for something that usually doesn't serve us. And it'll be hopping onto our phones, some kind of an online addiction. It might be a shopping addiction or playing video games or whatever, or alcohol, sex, drugs, whatever. And so the biggest thing is if something like that is coming up for you, you can clear it just by feeling it and breathing into it, breathing fully. Let yourself feel your emotions. You will feel lighter, and then the gratitude comes more naturally. It's not forced, and you will feel light and much more optimistic, hopeful, motivated.
Wow. Don't force the gratitude. Feel the feelings and then let the gratitude slip in behind the feelings and move into it. Because, yeah, I would say emotions kind of a lot of times like the ocean, right? There are waves of it.
That's right.
And as the waves come in, you feel that anger or depression or whatever it is. You let it roll in and at least hit you. And then after you feel that feeling, you don't, and I'm going to say it this way. Just because you feel something, you don't have to claim it's yours. I might feel anger, but it's not my anger. I'm releasing it back to whoever sent it. They can have it. I don't need it. I'm going to feel gratitude. Like I'm going to feel it, but then I'm going to choose to feel the gratitude. So that way, a lot of times I hear people say, I had a thought. It was really evil. And I'm like, no. There was a thought that was in your mind. It wasn't your thought. It was planted in there somehow. TV show, something from your childhood or something bad that happened in your life. But you don't have to claim the thought. You can release the thought and claim a different thought.
Yeah. And so many of our thoughts are just created by our conditioning. You're right. They didn't begin with us.
So how can people find you, Cheryl?
They can, real easy to Google search me, Cheryl Stelt, Stelte. You can find me on social media. I'm putting a little more effort into Instagram. If you want to follow me there, it's Stelt Cheryl. So my last name first, Stelt Cheryl on Instagram. You can also find my spiritual school, Star of Divine Light. And if you're interested in seeing where your blocks are and understanding where your blocks are and where your light is flowing well, I love to do chakra readings on people, and people find that extremely helpful.
Cool. Any quote you'd like to leave the people with?
My quote is, we are all powerful beyond belief, powerful beyond what you can currently imagine.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Chris Collier. I've been your host. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for being on today.
Thank you, Chris. This has just been fabulous.
Please like, share, subscribe, depending on what platform you're on, and hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube. Thank you so much. Okay. My name's Chris Collier. I want to give a little shout out here to Cheryl Stelt. Cheryl was a wonderful guest. She really knows her stuff in her niche. And man, that is just a beautiful thing, because a lot of times people go around trying to be something to everyone, and she knows her niche well. I just greatly appreciate her for being on. And thank you again, Cheryl.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Cheryl Stelt. It was such a pleasure to be interviewed by you, someone who's knowledgeable, open, listens well, and asks fabulous questions where we can really look at life and help those around us. So thank you, Chris. If you're thinking of being interviewed by Chris, I strongly encourage it.